Hello, dear students. This is the video session. Uh, in this session, I am going to give the synopsis of the play, The Way of the World, which is written by William Congreve. There were almost 15 sessions that I have discussed on the play and its background, The Way of the World. And now, in this session, I am going to brief uh, the, almost the story or the synopsis of the whole play. I concised that is the story of the play, and I want to share those views to you. Right, the topic of the uh, day class is the synopsis of the play, The Way of the World, William Congreve. Way of the World is Congreve's the first the popular play, and it is a comedy of manners. It was a trend in the 18th century England to write plays with the mode of comedy of manners. Every playwrights of the period they used to write comedy of manners. So in the same way, Congreve had also started to write comedy of manners, and he shaped and popularized and he had strengthened the comedy of manners during that day. Writing comedy was a classical tradition. It was not a tradition just the Restoration had started. It has a long history from Greek, Rome, that is French, and even in England. It has a long tradition, a great tradition to write comedies after tragedies. The best comedy was that I want to refer is Frogs. Keep remember, Frogs, which was written by Aristophanes. It was a popular comedy written in BC, long back in the history of literature. It influenced greatly on Elizabethan theatre. Elizabethan theatre, it was greatly influenced by the tradition of Aristophanes comedy. Shakespeare wrote both comedies and tragedies. He was a master of tragedies and master of comedies, and sometimes he could write both tragic comedies too. And many all varieties of the plays that were written by Shakespeare, about 37. The contemporary playwright of Shakespeare was Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson was such a kind of a poet and a playwright. He introduced literally the comedy of humors during the Elizabethan period, and he popularized the same tradition of writing comedy of humors uh, as well. I want to refer one of his plays, that Walpole or the Fox by Ben Jonson. It was very popular. That is comedy of humors by Ben Jonson. He was a contemporary and a friend, I want to say, of that is Shakespeare. French were also equally enough to influence on English Restoration comedies. Restoration comedies were influenced not only by Johnson and Shakespeare and Aristophanes and the Greeks. Even the French were also influenced a lot, both the theatre and audience. Thus, comedy has a long history and tradition in English literature. But William Congreve of Restoration was not escape from this tradition, and he was greatly influenced by the comedy, particularly by Johnson and French tradition. He wrote and presented his plays in his time itself. It was done well done by that is Congreve. Let us see why Congreve could write uh, very effectively and why he could adapt the mode of comedic manners to write his plays. It was simply because he was greatly influenced by the literary laureates and literary figures of his age. That is the influence of great literary figures on Congreve. He was impacted, influenced, and he was motivated to write uh, plays, comedies, particularly the comedic manners. One such great influenced personality was that is Jonathan Swift, the great novelist of the age. Jonathan Swift, he met at his college days, and he was got acquainted with him, and he was influenced, and he was motivated somehow by Jonathan Swift. And another important figure of the age who greatly influenced, motivated as a mentor was that John Dryden. John Dryden, you know well that he was a poet, a dramatist, and a great critic of the age. Great writer. Dryden was a mentor and a great lifetime supporter of Congreve. It means that his Congreve was a disciple, a honest disciple, a dedicated disciple of John Dryden, and he got all the support, a lifetime support from the John Dryden, and so he write well his plays. And many of his plays were edited and corrected before they were presented. It was all honestly done by John Dryden. Therefore, it was a great influence and motivation and inspiration of John Dryden on Congreve. So he could write well his plays. Comedic manners was shaped by him, though many writers like Goldsmith, Sheridan, Beaumont, and Fletcher were that period, and the rest were actively writing their comedy of manners and sentimental comedies in the Restoration period. There were many other writers, not only Congreve. There were many other writers like Goldsmith, Sheridan, Beaumont, and Fletcher, and the rest were actively writing their comedy of manners and sentimental comedies in the Restoration period. It was the mode they opted to write because why they have taken so serious to write comedy of manners? Because the people period were leading luxurious life and a kind of lazy life they were leading. They got misused the freedom during the Charles II, who recommended to restore and re-establish the long closed theatres. The great role was played by Charles II, the king of the period, to restore the theatres. The liberty that was given by him was misused and misled by the people of the period, and they could live like anything, and it was harmful to uh, the people around them. Therefore, in order to check this and in order to expose the follies and in these that is manners of the people, they had to write comedy of manners. There was no ethics, and they never did follow social manners and culture and etiquette. The people they got free, and they did not respect social manners, and they did not follow even the culture of the history and of the nation. Uh, they did not have respect for customs and traditions of the past, and they did not have any kind of historical sense. They have lost that. They got extreme freedom and thought to live like animals. Because of these reasons, the writers of the period they wanted to expose the follies. They wanted to correct them. They wanted to make them realize to understand the fact of life. They wanted to live like as life is. The writers of the period they wrote uh, well the comedy of manners during that period. Now let us see the ground set for comedy of manners. How the ground was set. How the ground, socio-political, economical, the ground, literary ground was set for the people to write and the people to watch the plays that were written and presented during that period. So writers of the time thought to break and check their moral social life and their manners. They began to write comedy of manners and later sentimental comedies. They wanted to expose the follies and weakness of the people, and finally they wanted to realize what they had done. So they used satire very effectively to mock and laugh at their over attitudes and behaviors. The common elements of the comedy of manners were wit, irony, satire, farce, scandals, and more intrigues, and the several were that is seriously used as elements of comedy during that period by almost all the writers of the period. As William Congreve was most influenced by this tradition, he devoted himself and wrote comedies like The World Bachelor, The Love for Love, The Double Dealer, and The Way of the World. In the light of comedy of manners, literally shaped comedy of manners during his plays. Now this is the first part of the synopsis. I am going to conclude the first part, and in the second session, I continue the same as a second part. Thank you for listening. I will continue. Thank you very much.